It's Tim Albright with Tech Talks, talking today with my buddy, Mr. Paul Harris from Aurora Multimedia. Welcome, sir.
How you doing?
I am well, man. So back in April, I want to say, maybe it was March, you and I first started talking about, thermal scanning technology. And you guys had one of the first, if not one of the, not the first, on the market for as far as the AV industry. You have since taken that idea and you've developed your own line and improved on the original design. Now you've got a new product called Tavis, the thermal audiovisual integrated solution. Let's talk for a second about, first and foremost, why did you guys feel the need to go back to the drawing board and kind of reimagine, the thermal imaging and the thermal scanning technology?
Okay, so it's a fantastic question. One of the main things is when we first started off with the first generation, it was a code development effort. It was all our code that was running on it with our React engine and some of the techniques that we were doing on it. But as the products got out there and as it matured and we saw needs for other requirements come in, and also making certain that there was a return on investment with these products, we then saw the need to continue the technology development. So like any other product, there's a first generation, a second generation, and so on. What came out in April was the first generation of these type of products. And from learning from the feedback of a lot of these end users and integrators that are out there and some of their needs, we were like, okay, well, time to develop the next generation in the background, which is what we did. And so Tavis, this time around, it's not a code development. It is 100% developed by Aurora. One of the things I'm proud to talk about is that it's made in the USA, so we can label it as such. So the sensor that you see up on the top module was developed by us, and it is made right here in this building, our own robotic assembly line. So we're one of the few companies still actually making electronics in the United States. The monitor and stuff like that, which has the Android engine, that we do get from overseas, but the firmware and everything else makes it a full made in the USA type of product, because the majority of it is made right here in the USA, and it's all assembled here in our building. So yeah, we're in full control of it. It's a ground up technology, so a lot of big differences.
Well, and let's pick on the made in the USA part for a second, because and a lot of your clients and your dealers deal with government, they deal with house of worship, but also education. That made in the USA part is critical when it comes to getting into certain job sites and getting into certain proposals. Is that right?
That is correct. That was one of the other concerns with people is, when you're dealing with partnerships or things overseas, sometimes they worry about the code that's in it. Now, in the first generation, it was our code. So we were the ones compiling it, writing it. So even though it was a code development and I couldn't call it made in the USA for the first generation, it was actually our code in it. So it was substantially modified in the USA. So we didn't have too much of a problem with that. The issue that we had more with the first gen, it was Android 7 based, which is typical of a lot of the products out there. This new generation is actually Android 9 based, which gets you more into the corporate allowances of Android, because you got to be really up to about Android 9 for the corporates to allow it, as well as we're working on a Linux version too. So hopefully maybe sometime by late Q1, we'll have a Linux version. Don't hold me to it, but we're trying to do a Linux version for it as well. You know us, we're trying to always take it to another level and do something different with it.
Well, absolutely, and then those Linux versions are also going to be, it's interesting as you guys develop different ones. It gives different corporations, the opportunity, if they are a Linux house or they are, a different type, or they have, whatever reasons for looking at Android differently. Something else.
And by the way, if I have my way, so my engineers listening out there who are on my team with this, I want my dual boot. So I told them, I said, I want a dual boot where you can actually, when you get it, you choose whether it's Linux or Android. So I'm going to see if I could pull that one off and do a dual boot scenario on that one. So that way, when you get it, it's not, me and different part numbers. I like to have one part number, make it nice and simple, so they could choose what's best for it. But the Linux, the advantages to the Linux will be just security, and it's faster, and some people like it. But there are advantages to Android. And one of those advantages is the software that's out there that you can load in and utilize in conjunction. So Android has some advantages to it. Linux has other advantages. So it really depends on the applications. My famous line, different applications, different expectations.
Well, and talk about where actually where I was going, and you bringing up the Android side actually helps getting us there. Is the React's back end that you have? You know, the React's control system that's embedded in this thing. You can take your clients and working in conjunction with the end user can take this into the React's Core Studio software and customize it, right? They can bring in a weather app. They can bring in something else that's already baked into Android and make it their own. I mean, the panel behind you has the Tavis logo, but you could, if you're deploying this at Coca-Cola, that could be a Coca-Cola logo. You can kind of make it and customize it based on, you know, the React's control system software that you guys have developed.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So since even Gen 1, we had a Reacts engine. So nothing happened different. Reacts is the core to many of our products now,
Yeah.
whether it's our AV over IP products or our control system products, or even in this case, our temperature tablet, which this really is, you know, we call it a temperature tablet, but it's really more of an experience because it does digital signage, it does control automation. It's really, temperature is really just a small part of what it does. As you know, it's just easier to express to people that it's a temperature tablet for now. But the big thing about this is whether it's a pandemic or seasonal flu or whatever you're using it for, this is more about what can you do with it when you're not doing something like that, or you don't have the need at that moment in time to take it. And that's where the Reacts and the digital signage capabilities come into play with this thing. So the Reacts, yes, as you said, it allows you to control the entire experience of this device, not just with the interface where you can make this look any way you want. You can even rotate this. These will mount portrait mode as well. This module comes up and it docks onto this side. That's great when you're doing digital signage because you can do a split screen in your GUI creation, put maybe some digital signage down here and then the temperature over here. You can control what they see on there. Do you want them to see a temperature? Do you not want them to see a temperature? Do you want them to see maybe the thermal pattern? Because we can show you the thermal pattern, make it look cool in a way. You can really change the color palettes. Whatever you do, it's a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and you can move it around. But it's not just about the interface. It's about the code in the background. So because it's control system based, you can write the code and interface into weekend systems. You can, which is a common thing with security. You can trigger something as simple as a relay to open up a door. So when you get this isn't about just walking up and taking a temperature. It will facial recognize you. It will allow you entry into a building. It will do, right now, it can record you streaming as a security camera, and our centralized software tool, which we'll go into, can actually record all the different tablets and their locations to use as security devices, or to just recall an incident that may have actually happened that you want to make certain it was handled properly and that there's no issues with it. It can email notify. So it's more than just that. And when you're not in front of it, you could do a digital signage. And I'm going to go into some even more advanced features that Tavis has, which takes it to a whole nother level beyond what this has. So some of the improvements that we did, I guess, let's go into the improvements of what we've done with Tavis. So right off the bat, we increased the processing power and the memory. So now it's a 6-core processor. It is 4 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of flash. So it's got a lot of memory and a lot of processing power. So it's actually running at 1.8 gigahertz. So it's not some cheesy little engine in this thing. It's got some really good processor. We're doing a lot of artificial intelligence in here. And this sensor module is really a big part of our invention here. You think it would be the tablet itself, but it's really this module right here. So one of the big differences we did is, yeah, this little thing sticking out here, that is our new sensor array. It's 5 times the resolution of any other tablet out on the market right now. They're doing 32 by 32 pixel arrays. We're doing 80 by 64, which gives us 5 times the resolution. So why are we doing 5 times the resolution? Well, reason why we're doing that is because we're going after the canthus of the eye now when you're within 12 to 16 inches. So to explain what that does is the canthus is where the tear duct is. It's that soft tissue in the corner of your eye. One of the problems that's reported, and this isn't just about temperature tablets in general. This is even those handheld IRs that you put to your head. When you're doing IR sensing technology, it's measuring your surface temperature. So that means, let's say it's 107 degrees out. You're in Phoenix, Arizona, or somewhere hot and humid, and you've been out there for a long time. Now you come indoors. Your skin temperature could be as high as 102 degrees. Your core temperature is still going to regulate within about 0.5 degrees, but your skin temperature could actually change. and it could take up to 15 minutes to renormalize. So that means somebody can walk in and get a false positive. Same happens with the cold. If it's too cold and you've been exposed too long, once again, you got to wait for the circulation to come back. And then you could be reading 93, 95 degrees, which is invalid. So if you think about it, if you really did have a fever and you're reading too cold, it's offsetting your fever. So when you go up to the canthus, this is almost as close as you can get to the core temperature inside your body. You know, when's the last time your eyeball froze? You know what I mean? So it regulates a lot of temperature here very quickly is what happens. So what happens is, because we have more pixels and because it's such a small area, we can target right into that little tiny area and grab those temperatures, which normally the 32 by 32 can't do. And of course, the forehead scanners definitely can't do it because they're just targeting right here.
Yeah.
So the way I like to explain it is, it's the opposite of a projector. And by the way, for those wondering, does this emit or radiate anything into your brain or something? Because we've gotten those questions, by the way. This does not emit anything. It collects just like a camera. It collects just like a camera collects light. This is collecting infrared off your body. Okay. So that's all it's doing, is it's a collector. You're not gonna, nothing crazy is gonna happen here. So it's collecting that heat energy and reading the values off of it. So what happens is, and the way I like to explain it is, you know how, like, whether it's a flashlight or a projector, you put it on the wall and you pull away, and everything, you can start to see the pixels get bigger and bigger as it gets further away. Well, these sensors are like that. So yeah, you're gonna get a little bit of a lesson here, everybody, on how these sensors work. So when I'm not standing in front of it, they're going out to infinity. They'll keep going forever and ever, trying to grab whatever is coming into it. So, excuse me. So what happens is, when you get closer, just like with the projector, when you move it closer to the wall, things get brighter and easier to see, and the pixels get closer together. Well, the same thing happens with these things. When you get closer, the pixels are more concentrated. So when you have a 5 times the resolution and you're closer, what's actually happening is the pixels are getting closer to within it. 32 isn't enough to get those little tiny area, but when you have 80 by 64, it is just enough to grab about 4 pixels from each side, and then you got your temperature. So yeah, it actually does work, and it has a higher probability of grabbing it. Now, to make it easier, see how you're wearing glasses?
Yeah.
Guess what we have in this? Eyewear detection. So I know you heard of mask detection, which we have.
Yeah.
Okay. But we have eyewear detection, and we now even have hat detection and goggle detection. So if you're using this in labs and you want to make sure they're wearing a goggle, we can tell you're wearing a goggle. If you're wearing a construction area where you got to wear a hard hat, we can tell that you're wearing a hat. Okay, so pretty cool things. The other thing that we can do, which is another new feature, this is more beneficial to analytics and especially with digital signage, is we could do age, gender, and ethnicity predictions. Okay, so, and it will give you the level of percentage of it, of what it believes the accuracy of the prediction is, because it's not perfect. I mean, obviously, if a guy dresses up for Halloween in a wig and tries to shave really good and has the facial features, what can I tell you? It's going to fool it. But it's not really meant to be perfect. It's meant to be percentage-wise a certain level of accuracy, and that's where some of the artificial intelligence comes into play. So how would you use something like that? Well, you know how, like, you got these digital signage players out there?
Yep.
One of the problems with them is they only, you're playing a random ad and you're hoping people are there to watch it. What would happen if this can predictively know when somebody is in front of it, and then based on their age range, gender, ethnicity, can tell what type of ad to play that's really more appealing to them? So this is the way you're not wasting their time, and you're not wasting your time either for being the ad placer. So not only can you determine what are the best times of day to do an ad, who is watching your ads, how long was their attention span looking at the screen for during your ad. So it's very good analytics to determine what is the best way to communicate to your customer. And it's done very, because when people say, well, what about my privacy and all that stuff? It's not taking photos of you or anything like that. It's just predictively saying it's some random person who happens to be
it's analyzing the demographic. You know, it's analyzing your demographic. You are a, you know, some type of age, you know, white guy, and so I'm going to serve you up an ad based on that. I do want to get into that real quickly before we get into the benefits and stuff, but and then the new features. Talk for a second about the digital signage part, because there are some folks, some clients, and some feedback we've gotten from some technology managers, like, well, you know what, this is a phase, right? Where we are not always going to need temperature scanning, in a year, or now that the vaccine is out, we may not even need these types of things. Talk for a second and talk to not only the end user, but also the integrator about the power of that digital signage player, because now you've got not only in the current situation an ability to safely bring people back into work, but now you've got an ROI machine that really kind of pays for itself over the long term.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is for what we charge for these, it's actually in some cases less than what you would normally pay for just a regular device that might do a fraction of what these do. Now, I will be showing you a demonstration of one of these things that you see a lot online, the good old Chinese tablets that are dumping themselves onto the market. And, so you wait till you see my demonstration later on that one, where how poorly they work, actually. So we're gonna have some fun with that. But the reason why I like to talk about that is because they primarily do just simply entry and temperature taking. And that makes it seasonal. If you use it for the entry, okay, not too bad. But you'll see why even for entry, it's not that good. I'm gonna show that to you as well. Their techniques are poor in the facial recognition part of things. But what's important to note is that what this is doing is, this is not just about taking a person's temperature. This is about, for example, in Q1, we have a two-way help desk support coming out. So this way, let's say you're doing a school, for example, okay? We actually had our school say this to us, where they wish that they would have done this years ago, not because of a pandemic, but because, do you know how many kids go to school with a fever and then they get everybody in the class sick, and then you end up with lots of kids out sick? So this isn't just about a pandemic. This is about quality of life. And do you want, even for work, do you want somebody with the flu coming in, because flu comes every season, and getting everybody else in your workplace sick because they were sick and they just felt they could power through it? So these are some of the things that it can be used going forward. But even when you're not using that, and let's say it's corporate, I could simply turn this into a scheduling board, or just welcome so-and-so, glad you came to our company, go upstairs. Or as I said, an entryway, it scans you, you could put QR codes up to it and use it as a badge scanner. We've even had people integrate their barcoders or their NFC type devices to this, because we can connect into other systems on it. So it's a platform that is capable of so much more. I can even automate control lighting with this, the local displays with it. It is a full-blown control system. Let's say you have no need for it in the front door entryway anymore. Okay, remove this module, put it into a conference room, and then control the whole conference room. It'll make the drapes open, the screens go up and down, start your call for you, just like any other control system, because it is a control system. And if you think about how much a control system costs, well, we're charging for this, you're paying already for just a touch panel for a regular control system, except you're getting the digital signage, the predictions. This thing also has gestures, by the way, where you can raise your hands up and it will do yes or no. And one of the new features is we're doing shaking head yes and no. So you could put like a CDC questionnaire up on there and answer yes or no. So you could do that even when you're not having a pandemic, to answer other questions before you enter into a building by just using simple gestures, which we're going to go into something else later on about why all this technology. And we have a box version now, which unfortunately I didn't bring into my room right now, but we do have a box version of it which will work with any size screen. So it will work with an LED wall, a 50-inch, a 70-inch. And then you could, this module comes off and it's got a tripod mount on it, and you can mount it and aim it anywhere you want. So this way, now you can use it as that advanced digital signage image with any display that's out there, or create a totally custom kiosk. So for people who like to do those custom kiosks, yes, you can take our existing one and stick that in a kiosk, or maybe they just want to use let's say a 40-inch screen turned portrait mode and put into like a thing that looks like a gaming system.
Yeah.
Well, we got the technology. All they need to do is supply the environment, the aesthetics of it, and then the rest of it will take care of itself.
All right, a couple of things that before we let you get out of here. First and foremost, is the centralized processing. Explain that to me.
Okay, so the centralized processing, which is based on the Reacts, constantly scans. And one of the things about this and its horsepower is that it can actually do 2 people from up to 5 feet away. And as you get closer, it'll do 1 person when you're doing it, and it will start reading the temperatures. And then as you get closer, it'll go into a Cantus mode and start reading your Cantus temperature of the device itself.
And that's the corner of the eye there.
Correct. So it'll actually go after this. My temperature happens to read lower than other people's, but that's by the way, another misconception is everybody always thinks your temperature is 98.6 degrees. That was like over like almost 100 back in the 1800s when they first, I think it was 1860, whatever. Anyway, it was a while ago when they came up with that range. But in the United States, the average human temperature has gone down by almost a degree.
Wow.
It has a lot to do with the anti-inflammatory elements and some of the medications and things like that. But you'll find that a lot of people actually read more in like the 97.8, 97.7, low 98s. It's actually not as common to read as the 98.6. Not that you can't read it, but it will vary in that respect.
Yeah,
so, so that's one thing. But so as you do it, and then it will read you, and based on what you have set up in here, you can adapt it as well. So it does allow you to do an environmental setup, recalibrate it to what your environment is, and do offsets to it. So you could leave it at what the real temperature is. Like right now I have it set up where it's just reading real skin temperature. You can offset it relative to the core temperature. So if you take like a thermometer and you put it in your mouth, you could create an offset. You know, like they do the rule, oh, if you put it under your armpit, you add a degree. You can kind of do that. It does allow you to do that and create a separate offset independent of the Cantus reading relative to the forehead reading. So it's got a lot of flexibility of how you set it up in your environment, but it doesn't need a black body in the background. So that's one of the other cool things is some of the more expensive devices out there, and based on the technology that they're using, they're good, but they need a black body in the background to read. We don't need that black body to actually read.
All right, very cool. You also have a number of options that we can add to this, customers can add to this. Talk about those for a second and what each option kind of gives you to customize it and make it your own.
Yeah, so we have additional options that we've made for this. So one of them is because we can do facial recognition on this generation, and that could be local or centralized. So we have a centralized way of doing facial recognition. We also, and locally, you can hold like 10,000 faces on it, but you can actually transport those libraries to other panels if you don't want to do the centralized. And just for the security people there who wonder, oh my God, it's taking pictures of me. When you do facial recognition, it doesn't have to take a picture of you. While yes, you're in full control, and no, Aurora does not take any data from here. We don't want it. We don't care about it. It's whatever they do specific to the site. So while it's very flexible, and yes, you can take photos, you can store, you don't have to. It comes out of the box with where you set it up for how you want to do it for yours, and it can stay within that site and that site only. But when you're doing facial recognition, it's taking mathematical points all over the face and then storing that algorithm. And that's all it is an algorithm. So let's say somebody somehow hacked your system and they got your facial recognition data. Well, it doesn't really do much for them. It's not showing you who you are. It's just saying I got a bunch of random stuff that makes up somebody. And unless you put who that somebody is in with it, it will never make the correlation. So like anything else, it depends on how you implement it. And there's a good way and a bad way of doing it. But we work with our customers on what those best methodologies are. Now, another thing that we actually do is we have a 4G option for it, which allows you to be totally free of Wi-Fi or a direct LAN connection. And by the way, all these panels, they come in a 10.5, a 15.6, and a 21.5 inch. I didn't mention that. Oh, and the box version, which somebody brought up to me right now. This is what the box version looks like.
And so you put that behind any sort of display you want, including a direct view LED panel.
Yep, or you could even put this in a conference room as well, and it makes it a touchless conference room. That's a 6-foot USB cable. And if you put it in a conference room, I can actually automate the conference room. Even if it has an existing control engine in it, we can tie our capabilities into the existing system. Or if you don't, we are the control system, so you don't have to have another control system. So we can work, we play nice with everybody. So we can play nice with an existing system, or we can become the system. But that means that I could do things like by Q1, you could raise your hand and change a source. It has, one of the things in the sensor is it has stereo microphones with automatic gain control, feedback suppression, noise cancellation. It's got the works, and it does it all in hardware. And it'll pick up your voice from up to 12 feet away if you wanted to, based on your settings. Wow. And it will do, one of the things we're introducing is voice recognition. So in the room, you could do a keyword and then say lights off or source one. So this way you don't have to touch a panel that other people were touching, or put a QR code up on here, show your QR code, and then you'll be able to control the room that way. But because of the box version, you won't be holding it up to this screen, you'd be holding it up to the screen in the room, because that has an HDMI output on it. So this is about the room itself. That's the beauty of the box version, is it's not about digital signage. That's one facet of it. It can be used in conference rooms to make a totally touchless solution for that conference room, to automate the whole room and even people count, and even do the facial recognition to grant the access into the room. So it's a very powerful touchless room controller device as well. And it's going to continue to evolve over the next few months as we continue all the code that we've been writing. So a lot of the stuff that we've been doing for these tablets, we're bringing into the conference rooms, not just the entryway, as well as the digital signage platforms. And we're even starting to work on content management systems on the back end, which brings us back to our the options, which is our centralized server, which will do the recording, you can have 100 panels and update the firmware all out there. It'll keep track of all the analytics and the statistics of how many people went through. So it'll people count, tell how many passed, how many failed, tells you their approximate age, any of that information. That's all in the server software. It's called Tavis Central, and that's going to be shipping probably, if not the end of this month, very beginning of January. So that's another new product that we have. So we have a centralized server software, and that'll run on Linux, Windows, or Apple, as a matter of fact, the way we wrote the code. And then you serve it up on web pages to your mobile device or to your computer.
Very cool. One other thing real quickly, the panel behind you is mounted on one of your new mounts that allows that to go anywhere because it's battery powered.
Well, this one's not battery powered right now, but one of the nice things about it, you can't really see it, but it's a beautiful stand. One of the things that we got from the feedback from people are great at giving us feedback, which we appreciate, was the stands that are out there right now, including our other stand, wasn't suiting all their needs. So I came up with a design for a stand that was a combination of 4 or 5 different stands into one. So one was to increase the aesthetics of it. So now it's more of an oval style instead of just a pole. It's still adjustable. You can raise it all the way up to here, or you can put it down lower and angle it slightly upward. So it's fully adjustable. But one of the other things we did to it is not only did we allow you to make it go even lower, so that way for shorter people, they can do that slight bend over and read, because some people prefer it that way rather than having it up high. Yeah. But we also added a compartment. You can't see it right now, but there's a compartment in the base with a locking key, and you could put up to a 50,000 milliamp battery into it. And so what it will do is, usually it's better suited for the 10-inch because it draws the least power, but 10-inch without power savings, you could probably get a good 19 hours out of it on one battery charge. So you can swap the batteries out and then have it totally. And then what we did was we also added a caster wheel option to it, because some people wanted rollabout, because these things are about almost 28 pounds. So you don't want to, be lugging it around. No, so you could use the caster wheel and it's locking. You put it on it and you can wheel it around, put it into place, lock the casters, have a battery in it, maybe connected to Wi-Fi or 4G. And so for, let's say you have let's say you have a place like, let's say in a mall where you want to just wheel it outside the store. Well, now you can. And then at the end of the day, you wheel it back in. Makes it a lot easier. And there might not be an electrical cord there. So we solved that problem too. That stand's going to be shipping at the end of January, and it comes in white or black. And by the way, these panels now come in white or black. So right now, the bulk of it we're shipping is in black until we feel how many people want the white. I personally like the white a lot, especially the 10-inch white when it's in landscape mode. Looks really slick, especially when you're doing medical. It just has that elegance to it. Some people like, it's like to each their own. Some people like a white phone, some people like a black phone. So we're giving that option as well. So we really upgraded that. So
very cool. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so one of the things that I want to, which you may have been going into, is a quick little demonstration of why the thing. So ready to see this?
Yep, absolutely.
So we got our handy dandy 8-inch. So yes, we went out and bought one of these things. So when we came out with the first tablets on the market, it didn't take long for China to dump a ton of them on the market. So what they did was they took these security tablets that were already on the market and they threw a thermal sensor on it. They're all basically made by 2 companies overseas, and they just sell it to like 30 other companies in the US, and then they all claim it's their product. They give it a new cutesy name. So whereas we're the original manufacturer and we're it, and this is our technology, this is really coming from 2 places. But what's interesting about it is, and this is the test I love to do,
Woody.
My pal Woody from Toy Story, okay? And we printed them out in black and white, by the way. And yeah, you'll hear it.
Please get close.
Whoops, let me align it.
Normal
Did you hear
temperature.
that?
Yep.
Normal temperature, please wear a mask. Now, I should have put a mask on Woody, to be honest with you, and then he wouldn't have failed the mask test. But one, what's it telling you for security? It's going to let you through with a valid temperature of that. Now on ours, okay, scanning, temperature outside of the range, it's reading 91.5 degrees on this piece of paper right now, okay? So it's reading the surface temperature of the paper itself, which is not in human range. No. But we also have what we call anti-spoofing, where it looks, we actually have binocular camera in this generation as well, so it has night vision. That's another thing we didn't talk about. Wow. And it also has an LED bar that you can control the colors on it. And we do have a night rider mode, so it can go back and forth. That was my request on that one, had to have a night rider mode. So, hey, David Hasselhoff, gotta love it.
Absolutely.
We don't have him singing on the panel, but we do have him scanning on the panel, or at least we have Kit, okay? Yeah. So got to bring up the 80s in this one. But this does have night vision. It's got IR lights on it, and we can actually see in the dark, but we actually use a binocular camera to make certain that it's a real person that is in front of you. So we have anti-spoofing. We are actually working on even other algorithms to make certain that you don't try to hold a water bottle or a compress on your head or whatever. So we have some new firmware that's coming out in January that even furthers our anti-spoofing to keep this technology going. So this is not some just quick pandemic device that we made here. We're taking this very seriously. We want to be #1 in the market, and we want to keep advancing this technology, not just for the entryways, but into the conference room, into the digital signage. And you're going to see a lot of stuff coming out from us over these next few months, just really taking this to a whole nother level and a whole nother pivot market. But as you can see by this is what's funny about it is, it'll read my temperature. Okay, I'm normal temperature at 97.7 on this thing. And Woody, my pal over here, is a normal temperature at 97.3 degrees. It actually, and if you notice, it didn't tell me to wear a mask as well. So it's inconsistent, and it changes its mind. So I honestly can't speak on behalf of what they're doing in this thing, but we were playing with it. I have a video out there where I rubbed ice cubes all over my forehead, and the thing kept saying normal temperature. And then I did one with the hot compress, and then it was saying I was 120 degrees. Yeah. So it's not, sometimes it does read accurately, and other times it doesn't. So I can't speak on behalf of what their algorithms are doing. I wish I could say it was as simple as it's a thermal sensor and you grab it. It really is a lot more complex than that. There's a lot of algorithms that go into these things for depth perception. And I could go on and on about how much work it takes to make one of these little sensors work. But if you don't understand the technology, you end up with that. So it may seem like it saves you money and that, oh, wow, I can get it for, hundreds less than something like this. But as they say, you get what you pay for. And if it's not reading the temperature accurately, or if it's letting Woody into your facility to help the other toys escape, you got some problems there. You know what I mean? I mean, nobody really wants to let the toys get out, if you know what I mean.
All right. On that note, Paul, if somebody's interested in getting a hold of Tavis or wants to find out more, how do they do that?
Okay, so best way to do it is, one, get more information about this on our website, www.auroramm.com. And if you want to email us, sales, plural, @auroramm.com are the best ways to do it. And more than happy to help you out.
All right, very good. Tavis and my buddy Paul Harris from Aurora Multimedia. For us, you can go by avnetwork.com. avnetwork.com, find more programs like this. So thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for watching on this episode of Tech Talks.